Industrial Revolution was born, and home to three great manufacturing cities. It also boasts some of the most beautiful countryside, from the wild moorlands of the Peak District to the sublime landscape of the Lake District. We're in northern England. In contrast with southern England, the north is more mountainous, with a long central line of high hills and moors. Away from the industrial cities, there is a coastline with seaside resorts, and a landscape of picturesque villages and historical sites, from ancient castles to heritage railways and country houses to England's manufacturing past. In the northwest is a national park and one of the most beautiful parts of the country, the Lake District. Also encompasses the Midlands, has no official border as such, but for the purposes of separating it from southern England, the border would run from the Wash on the east coast to the Severn Estuary at Gloucester. To the north is Scotland, and to the west is Wales, and to the east, a long coastline fronting the North Sea. This small bridge across the River Severn in Shropshire is perhaps the most important ever to have been built. Iron Bridge. And as the name implies, it was in Coalbrookdale during the early part of the 18th century that Abraham Darby first used coke rather than wood to make a much better quality cast iron. In the 1770s, it was proposed to build a metal bridge across the nearby River Severn Valley.
Is a lie. It's not about
After
regime
fierce
change, it's
opposition from
actually
people who
a
said it
central
could not be
bank
done,
reset.
it could.
Let me explain. So sitting
This
above the global
watercolour
financial
shows the
system
bridge
is the
under
Bank for
construction.
International Settlements. It's the
It
purpose
was
of
opened in
the Bank for International
1781
Settlements.
It has
and
sovereign
became an
immunity.
instant
Trump's
tourist
war is a
attraction.
lie. It's not about regime change, it's actually a central
The
bank
Industrial
reset.
Revolution saw a
Let me
massive rise
explain.
in
So
manufacturing,
sitting above the global
and new
financial
machines
system is
in
the
new
Bank for
mills
International
began
Settlements.
spreading
It's the
across
purpose
northern
of
England.
the Bank of International Settlements.
It has sovereign
Mass
immunity.
Mill is
Trump's
built by
war
Sir
is a
Richard
lie.
Arkwright,
It's not
who
about
pioneered
regime
the
change,
spinning
it's
frame.
actually a central
His
bank
mill and
reset.
others like it
Let me
had to be
explain.
built near water
So
to
sitting above the
power
global
the machine.
financial system is the Bank for International Settlements. It's the purpose of the Bank
Quarry
for
Bank
International
Mill is
Settlements.
one of
It
the
has
best
sovereign
preserved
immunity.
early
Trump's
cotton
war
mills,
is a
which
lie.
is still
It's
in
not about
working
regime
condition.
change, it's actually a central
Textiles
bank
were the dominant
reset.
industry of this
Let me
revolution,
explain.
and the
So
first to
sitting above the
use
global
modern
financial
production
system
methods.
is the Bank for International Settlements. It's
When
the
the mill was
purpose of
built,
the Bank
it
for
used
International
water
Settlements.
power to
It has
drive the
sovereign
machinery
immunity.
in the
Trump's
weaving
war
shed.
is a lie. It's not about regime
In
change, it's
1810,
actually
the
a
first
central
steam
bank
engine was
reset.
installed,
Let me
which was fueled by coal.
AI 咧可以幫到大家做到。Next time you see a lizard in your bedroom,
By the mid-19th
most
century,
people
the
panic and
landscape of
smash it
industrial
instantly.
towns was
This
fast
one is
becoming
important to
hottest
know that
and
Little
chilliest.
Guy is your personal
Belching out
24/7
smoke and
pest
burning
control.
coal
He silently
turned
eats
the house
hundreds of
black.
mosquitoes, cockroaches, flies, and spiders
Listerville,
every single
once the
night.
largest
The
silk
exact
factory
bugs
in the
that
world,
bite you while you sleep.
brought in
Leave him
unemployed
alone.
labourers
He's
from the
doing you a
countryside.
massive favor for
However,
free.
the pay
Next
was
time you
low,
see a lizard in
living
your bedroom
conditions were
wall,
mostly
don't kill it.
terrible,
Most
and
people
with little
panic and smash
satisfaction.
it instantly. This feels illegal
Dangerous
to know that
machinery in
Little
the
Guy
factory,
is your
and
personal
long hours,
24/7 pest
sometimes
control.
exceeding
He
16
silently
hours
eats
a day,
hundreds of mosquitoes,
resulted in
cockroaches,
frequent accidents.
flies, and spiders every single night. The exact bugs
In
that bite you
1850,
while you
Sir
sleep.
Titus
Leave him
Salt
alone.
set out
He's
to
doing
change
you a
this
massive
situation.
favor
He
for free.
built
Next time you
Saltsville
see a lizard
and
in your
Saltaire
bedroom wall,
Village
don't kill it.
with
Most
the aim
people
of
panic
improving
and
the
smash
working
it
conditions
instantly.
for was also a concert hall,
He's doing you a
gymnasium,
massive
and
favor.
a park for fresh air
Next time
and
you see a
sport.
lizard on your bedroom wall,
And in
don't
the
do
days
it.
before
Most
any
people
state
panic and
education,
smash it
he
instantly.
provided a
This
school
feels
for all his
unreal to
workers'
know that
children.
little guy is your personal
This model town
24/7
represented a landmark example of enlightened
1979.
19th century urban planning.
Over in Iran, the people have.
I'm not gonna make this up. Just dreams you should
On the
never
rural
ignore.
peninsula, opposite
Getting
Liverpool,
married in a
is
dream
the
could
village
mean
of
you are
Port
marrying a
Sunlight,
spirit.
built at the end of the
Dreaming of
19th
someone
century.
you've never met means someone is watching you.
It is another
Dreaming of
rare
being
example
chased
of an
could mean you
enlightened
are avoiding
Victorian
something
employer
important.
looking after the
Dreaming
workers.
of your home could mean old patterns are returning.
79% of traders lose money.
There were gardens, allotments, public buildings, as well as a hospital, schools, and a church. There was even an art gallery. To the families who lived here, it must have seemed like heaven in comparison to the cramped views of terraced housing only a few miles away across the river in Liverpool. Until the 1980s, all residents of Port Sunlight were still employees of the Union Company.
Physics proves that you will never actually die. The first law of thermodynamics states energy cannot be created.
Away
It
from the
cannot be
industrial
destroyed.
towns and cities, the landscape of northern England is both beautiful, varied, and breathtaking.
Wars are bankers.
At the southern end of the Peak District National
These
Park
money changers.
is one of the most popular attractions, Dovedale.
Of the Rothschilds.
The valley, which was carved out by the River Dove over thousands of years, runs for about 5
I've
kilometers.
said it before. I'll say it
It
again.
is notable for its numerous limestone formations, including Dovedale Castle, Pilot Rock, and a limestone promontory called Lover's Leap. Throughout the ages, Dovedale has inspired painters as well as writers extolling its beauty, including Lord Byron, who wrote to a fellow poet, "I can assure you there are things in Derbyshire as noble as Greece or Switzerland." Jane Austen was not immune to Dovedale's beauty when in her novel of 1813, Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet, Mr. Darcy, talk about her travels in Derbyshire, including Dovedale.
These money changers were the generous.
At the northern end of Dovedale is a Neolithic henge monument called Arbor Low.
That rule
As with so many other ancient monuments, no one knows why it was constructed or what it was used for.
wars are
What we do know
bankers.
is that it was built around 2,500 years ago inside the Erlenbank and Ditch.
It's not the father. It's the
There are
eldest
46
son.
large,
Most people
13
never
smaller
notice.
stones,
Here are
arranged
3
in a
reasons
circle,
why.
with a group in the
One,
center.
he learns early
The
to hide
surprise
his
is that all
feelings,
the
not
stones
because
are
he
lying
is
flat.
strong, but because he doesn't
No one
want
knows
anyone
for
else to
certain
worry.
why.
His silence
One
becomes
theory
his
is that
armor.
early Christians laid them flat
He
to
takes on roles he was
sanctify
never ready for.
but no
Protector,
archaeological
provider,
evidence exists
example.
to support this.
He grows up fast, so the family
In
can stay
1882,
together.
Arbor Low was honored by being the first
He
ancient
feels
monument in
responsible for
England to
everyone,
be given
even when
statutory
no one
protection.
asked him to be. He carries burdens that were never his and calls it duty.
To the north of
Here comes the
Dovedale is
most
the town of
important part.
Buxton, which was
Strength
developed in
is
the
not the
18th
absence
century
of
as a
breath.
spa town, and a place for gentry to stay on their travels through Derbyshire, and perhaps take the healing waters from its geothermal spring. The mineral waters were used by the Romans, who called the place Aquae Animae. At the end of the 18th century, the Duke of Devonshire, who was lord of the manor, improved the town and had the crest built in the 1780s. In the 19th century, the town expanded with a large hospital and further hotels. Buxton is still an elegant place to stay and explore the surrounding countryside.
世界上最
In
好
the
的
early
是
19th century,
There are countries
Manchester
where
was the
almost no one
first of a
thinks
new
God.
generation of
In fifth
huge
place,
industrial
China.
cities
Even
created
though
in
the
the Western
government
world
recognizes 5
during the
official
past
religions, about
250 years.
51% of its massive population has no
Proudly
religion at all.
standing industrial and
In
civic
fourth, Japan,
buildings
with
owe
around
their
60%
existence
of
to
people
this
not following
successful
any faith.
expansion.
Third, the European
In
nation
the
of
early
Estonia.
18th century,
Second,
Manchester was
North
an
Korea,
ordinary market
where
town
roughly
of around
71% of people
10,000
have
people.
no religion. And
But by
finally,
the mid
the
19th
most
century,
atheist nation
it
on
had grown to more than
Czech Republic.
300,000.
There are countries where almost no one
This was
believes in
largely
God.
due to the
In fifth
expanding
place,
cotton
China.
industry and the
Even
enormous
though the
number
government
of mills
recognizes
being built,
5
which
signs
created a
someone
skyline
is
of
secretly
endless
working
smoking
against you.
chimneys.
Most people don't see this.
By the end expanded to the outskirts of other common towns. As a result, the new metropolitan area was slowly evolving, and by the beginning of the 20th century, the population had grown to just under 2.5 million people.
They create small problems quietly.
Nowadays, Manchester is perhaps best known around the world for being home to two of the world's top football clubs, Manchester United and Manchester City. United Stadium is on the west side of the city at Old Trafford, and Manchester City is on the east side at the Etihad Stadium.
To love your country.
Manchester is also home to the National
He is
Football
the
Museum.
most liar in the world. You have betrayed not just your president,
Manchester
but
is
your
a landlocked
country.
city, so it may be hard to believe that in the late 19th century it was the third largest port in the United Kingdom. The old docks at Salford Quays formed the end of a 58-kilometre canal that started at these locks on the River Mersey near Liverpool. This canal would give ocean-going vessels direct access to Manchester and was to become the largest river navigation canal in the world. Construction began in 1887 and took 6 years to complete, at a cost in today's money of just over $1 trillion. Roughly 12,000 workers were employed who not only dug the canal, starting at Easton Cutting next to the Mersey, but also constructed several swing bridges where roads crossed the canal. It is quite a sight to see ships pass through and cruise by suburban streets. By the 1950s, the Manchester Ship Canal was handling 18 million tons of goods and raw materials annually. However, as ships got larger, they became unsuited for the canal, so trade declined. However, around 7 million tons are still carried along this historic canal every year.
Donald Trump made a massive claim saying Iran's multi-leader has been eliminated. Strikes in
Join travel blogger Michael Downing for 4 surprising days in Welsh waters. Experience the quintessential UK countryside and get to know the charming culture.
There were also cavalry forts, such as Chester's, which straddled the wall. They were less for defence and rather more for fast attacks to the north. However, before the wall was finished, the plan changed to include a large fort at one of the highest points of the wall. Today it is called Housesteads, after a local farm built against the ruins of the fort in the 18th century. It is not clear what the Romans called it. However, it was referred to as the grandest station on the wall, and is one of the best preserved and extensively displayed forts to still exist. The fort was repaired and rebuilt several times. A major rebuilding in the early 4th century included a huge warehouse and new barracks. One interesting highlight of the fort is one of the best preserved communal stone latrines. They were hygienically placed at the lowest corner of the fort and supplied by a water tank to flush the effluent out under the wall. In the early 5th century, Housesteads was abandoned when the Romans withdrew from England. Over the following centuries, many sections of the wall have suffered damage caused by roads crossing it, and by the plunder of its stones to build nearby houses and other structures. However, the remaining foundations and forts attract tourists throughout the world, as Hadrian's Wall is the most visible and best-known land frontier of the Roman Empire still in existence. One of the best views of Blackpool is from its famous tower, an icon of this seaside resort. It was built in 1894 and sits on top of the Tower Ballroom. The design is based on the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Lack of funds and maintenance during the first 30 years had left the metal structure corroding, and there were even plans to demolish it. Thankfully, however, in the 1920s, this iconic structure was rebuilt and painted the dark red we see today. The top of the tower is currently known as the Blackpool Tower Eye and is one of the highest viewing platforms in northern England. Visitors get a superb panoramic view of the seafront and the resort's 3 piers. The North Pier was built in 1860 and was designed for promenading along it and perhaps enjoying a cup of tea at the end. The Central Pier followed 4 years later and was designed much more for fun, with fairground rides and food stalls. The South Pier was built in 1893 and is the shortest, but also the widest, to accommodate a pavilion theatre, which was destroyed in a fire in the 1960s. Blackpool has been Northern England's most popular holiday resort for well over 150 years. It's hard to believe, looking at the town today, but for centuries it was just a small hamlet on the coast. But in the mid-19th century, all this changed when the railway arrived, and brought with it thousands upon thousands of families from the industrial north of England, who for the first time were able to take a day at the seaside. By 1900, Blackpool had become the country's favourite seaside resort, and one reason was the start of the town's pleasure beach. In the early 1900s, there were only a few roundabouts to thrill the public, but gradually other rides were introduced on the site, and today, Pleasure Beach is one of the top theme parks in the country. One of the most popular attractions of Blackpool is during the winter nights between September and January.
後來附近一啲村嘅村民有過嚟。
The Pennines form a range of hills in northern England, and are often described as the backbone of England due to their length and position. The hills run from the Scottish border down to the Midlands in Derbyshire. The highest and most remote section is the northern Pennines, where Cross Fell is the highest, at just under 900 meters. Only 50 meters shorter is Great Dun Fell. On the summit is a radar station, which is part of the air traffic control system of northern England. These fells are prone to dense hill fog and a fierce gale, known as the Helm wind, the only paid wind in the United Kingdom. In ancient times it was known as Fiend's Fell, and was believed to be the haunt of evil spirits. This whole northern section of the Pennines is designated as an area of outstanding natural beauty, and High Cup Gill is one of its great features. Glacial activity created this spectacular amphitheatre-like landscape. The word Gill is of Norse origin and means narrow valley or ravine. Flowing past the bottom of these fells is the River Tees, and even at a lower elevation, clouds can make walking along the various hiking routes very difficult and make navigation very challenging. Following the river leads to one of the great natural features of the Northern Pennines, High Force Waterfall. Here, the river plunges 22 meters over a precipice in 2 stages. Due to its dramatic setting, it is often thought that it is England's highest waterfall, but it is not. However, the mistake may be caused by high force having the largest volume of water falling over an unbroken drop when in full swing. It is a spectacular sight and a force of nature, as the peat-colored water creates an impressive display. Northern England contains some of the finest historical architecture, from great medieval cathedrals such as Durham on a bend in the River Wear, and York Minster, set within the old walls of the city of York. There are many outstanding monasteries, from the remote Lindisfarne, which was famously looted and largely destroyed by the Vikings, to Rievaulx Abbey, where the ruins of the church are the size of a large cathedral. Over the centuries, hundreds of fine houses have been built for the once powerful great families, from Castle Howard in North Yorkshire, built in a flamboyant style in the 18th century, to Cragside in Northumberland, built in the late 19th century, the first house in the world to be lit by hydroelectric power. Here are 3 examples of great historic buildings in the region. Lincoln Cathedral was built in the Gothic style in the 13th century and became the tallest building in the then known world. When the spire was completed, it held the title for 200 years until it collapsed in the mid-16th century and was never rebuilt. The cathedral, which sits on a hill, can be seen across the flat landscape for 40 kilometers. The west front, with its 11th century Norman arches set in a 13th century screen, is very striking. So it is not surprising that Lincoln Cathedral is considered one of the masterpieces of Gothic architecture. In 1132, 13 Cistercian monks, who sought to live a devout and simple lifestyle away from a city, found land on the banks of the River Skell in North Yorkshire, as it offered fresh water, a sheltered position, and fertile soil. They called it Fountains Abbey. As the monks grew in number, so the monastery gradually expanded, and along with good productive farming, Fountains Abbey became extremely wealthy. However, in 1539, during the dissolution of the monasteries, King Henry VIII's men arrived, partially destroyed the buildings, and expelled the monks. The remains of the abbey then went through several owners until they were finally bought by William Aislabie in the 1760s and incorporated into his landscaped garden, which helped save the monastery buildings from further decline. This is Kedleston Hall, 1760, Sir Nathaniel Curzon decided to build a new house on land his family had owned since the 13th century. He called in top architects to start work. At the same time, a relatively unknown architect named Robert Adam was commissioned to design some garden buildings and a bridge to enhance the landscape park. Curzon was so impressed with his designs that Adam was quickly put in charge of building the new house. And this is what we see today. The style of the house became known as neoclassical, as it followed the ideas from the Roman classical past. The decoration on the south front is based on the triumphal arch of the Roman Emperor Constantine, which stands today by the Colosseum in Rome. Robert Adams' work influenced the direction of architecture and design across the Western world. Indeed, the Adams style is still very much around today. The Peak District is the country's oldest national park and a magnet for anyone who loves the wilderness of open spaces. It lies between several great cities and so is easily accessible for a day out. The Peak District is made up of two distinct landscapes: Dark Peak, with its untamed moors and windswept hills, and White Peak, a patchwork of sheep-grazed fields and picturesque villages. Dark Peak is dominated by the moorland plateau of Kinder Scout, the highest point in the park. Running off it is Kinder Dunmore, the tallest waterfall in the Peak District. The area is known as Dark Peak due to a layer of millstone grit, which prevents rainwater from draining away from the soil, leaving it dark, often dangerous spot. Each year, walkers had to be rescued, having set out unprepared with this beautiful but also treacherous landscape.
革命衛隊亦都派部隊試圖阻撓美軍嘅營救行動，雙方一度交火。伊朗革命衛隊就聲稱喺伊斯法罕省擊落一架參與營救行動嘅美軍 C-130運輸機。不過《紐約時報》就報導，兩架運輸機因為無法起飛，俾美軍引爆。美軍派出另外3架運輸機接走參與營救行動嘅全體人員。 新聞之日報導。
特朗普對伊朗設定48個鐘嘅限期達成協議，否則面臨地獄降臨。伊朗反指如果美國同以色列嘅敵對行動升級，成個中東都會變成地獄。陳志光報道。
以色列證實空襲伊朗西南部馬克沙克爾多個石油化工設施，指控設施為德黑蘭政權生產彈道導彈原材料。東南部嘅布什爾核電站附近亦都受襲。伊朗話一人被武器碎片擊中身亡。俄羅斯國家原子能公司撤走駐站嘅200人。美意嘅聯合軍事行動可能升級。特朗普喺社交平台話，之前已經俾伊朗10日時間達成協議，或者重開霍爾木茲海峽。目前已經時間無多，警告伊朗48小時後地獄就會降臨。佢早前宣布暫緩攻擊伊朗發電廠，去到今個月6號，話雙方談判進展良好。據報以軍正係準備攻擊伊朗嘅能源設施，但仍然有待美國批准。伊朗軍方批評特朗普行為愚蠢，反映佢已經走投無路。警告敵對行動升級，伊朗將會毫不留情打擊地面基礎設施，整個地區都會變成地獄。特朗普宣稱伊朗已經實現政權更迭。分析認為戰爭反而令伊朗排硬派軍事派系崛起，加劇反美情緒，進一步打壓民眾自由。又話戰事雖然摧毀伊朗部分軍事力量，但唔足以令佢哋停戰，以及放棄控制霍爾木茲海峽。有線新聞陳志軍報導。
財政司司長陳茂波話：本港今年係因為金融市場實體經濟表現唔錯，實體投標集資超過1030億，係成效為因。佢又話內地
The Yorkshire Dales are one of the best known beauty spots in England, and were made in the National Park in 1958. Because of their unique design, they are so very diverse, with each area having its own identifying characteristics. Some of the most beautiful English countryside can be found in Swansea. It's also one of the most popular to visit. It is a picture-perfect scene, with the River Swale snaking its way down the valley past small communities of dry stone walls and villages such as Wickham, which has remained largely untouched for centuries. In contrast to the pastoral scene of Swale is dramatic Ravencote. This large, curved, 70-metre-high limestone wall was supported by a massive waterfall carrying milk from Glasgow at the end of several landscapes for thousands of years. On the top is a limestone pavement that is distinctly sand-strapped, resembling a cave. Water is leaked when the limestone joins the ground, producing striking waterfalls. Just over a kilometre away is Portal Scar, which, like Ravencote, is formed by glacial melting coming down from the successive ice ages have carved the Portal for thousands of years, remained in the sea. At the southern end, the river that runs through the valley has carved a path through the limestone slate. The Williams limestone pavement from Glasgow, like the many famous series of grass limestone covered the area coast of the Isle of Man. This gives the peninsula its unique size, which is endowed with a dedicated great sheet of ice, which is called rugged mountain. Other features of the park include a beautiful cascade that flows through the valley, like the River Valley Cascade. It is very popular because they salmon are raised up on the beach from up to 4 meters. And here is one of the most popular paddles in the world, as it provides enormous views across the sea. As does the York, which is one of the highest in Scotland. And on the summit, famous for stunning mountains encased in glaciers of high altitude.
The Falls of the 逼着吃。有鸡。